Today, we are going to do directing part 5. And in this, we are going to understand the concept of communication and also discuss about formal and informal communication. Now, what is communication? Communication is basically exchange of information between two or more people, and the purpose is to have a common understanding. Now, I've written a word here. Now, what does this word mean? It could mean two things. One, God is now here, or God is nowhere. So it all depends upon how you look at it. So communication is very important. If you do not understand it in the same sense in which it is meant, then the purpose of communication is defeated. Therefore, the managers have to really work on it and see that whatever is meant for the employees and the subordinates, they understand it in the same sense. Now, this is the process of communication. It starts with the sender, then the message, then it is encoded through a wire media, then decoded, and then the receiver receives it, and the receiver sends it back to the sender in the form of feedback. That is why we say communication is a process. Process means it is a full circle. It comes back to the person who starts it. And in between, there may be some disturbance or hindrance called noise. So let us do each and every element one by one. First is the sender. Sender is the one who starts the communication. He has some ideas which he wants to communicate. Now, in one communication, there can be only one sender. Remember when you were talking in the class and your teacher would punish you? Why? Because she was talking. And in one communication, there can be only one sender. There cannot be more than one sender. If there are more than one sender, then there are two different communications. So communication starts with the sender. Then the message is what is the sender wanting to say? What is the content of the communication? That could be ideas, feelings, suggestions, anything. Then comes encoding. Encoding means converting these into either words or gestures or pictures. So converting it in such a way that the person for whom it is meant, that person understands. Suppose I wave my hand like this, means I'm saying bye. So I'm converting it into a gesture, or I could write it down, or through words or pictures, etc. Then comes the via media. The next element of communication is the media. Media means the channels of communication. How are you going to communicate? There's so many channels of communication. It could be written, it could be face-to-face, it could be over a phone call, which you're very familiar with, or it could be over the internet, like you and I are communicating through the internet. And then decoding. Now the message is for the receiver. So it is decoded into coded symbols for the receiver. For example, if I'm talking to my milkman, I can't talk to him in English. I'll have to talk to him in Hindi. So therefore, you have to decode the message according to the receiver. And then comes the receiver. Now, receiver is the person for whom the communication is meant. Now, while in one communication, there can be only one sender, there can be more than one receiver. And then finally, feedback. So it is only through feedback that the sender comes to know that whatever I have communicated to the receiver has understood. That is why you people have exams in school. Whatever your teacher has taught you, through your exam, she comes to know whether you've understood it in the same sense in which it is meant. So these are the elements of communication. Now, while we are talking about the elements of communication, we cannot forget about the noise that is made. Now, there are 6 causes of noise. There could be many more also. Noise are called hindrance or obstruction. First is ambiguous symbols leading to faulty encoding. Now, if I raise my hand and show you like this, so what does it mean? It could mean victory. It could mean two. So then sometimes when the symbols that you're using, they've got other meanings also. Then the message becomes ambiguous. Ambiguous means vague. You can't understand it. Then poor telephone connection. You must have all experienced it. It must have happened with you sometime or the other. You're saying hello, hello, and the other person is not able to listen. So the telephone link may be sometimes poor. Then inattentive receiver. Now the receiver is not listening. The sender is sending, sender is saying, but the receiver is thinking of something else, he's preoccupied. So he's not paying attention to what the sender is saying. So inattentive receiver. Then faulty decoding. That means wrong meaning to the message. Now decoding is by the receiver. So the receiver doesn't understand it in the sense in which the sender has sent. For example, a manager told his subordinate, he wanted that person to be stopped. Somebody was leaving, he said, just go and stop him. So he told him in Hindi, Roko, mat jane do. He said, Roko, mat jane do. But the subordinate understood, Roko mat jane do. Same word, Roko mat jane do could be Roko mat jane do or Roko mat jane do. So he understood the other way around and he allowed that person to go. So this is called faulty decoding. Then comes prejudice. Sometimes we have prejudice in our mind against that particular communication. For example, a friend of yours told you that there's not going to be any class on Saturday. It's a second Saturday, so it's an off. There's no class. So, and these days are online classes, so you never bothered to see whether the class is there or not, and you didn't attend. And on Monday, when you had the class again, you were punished because you were missing on Saturday. Now, again, your friend is saying that this Saturday, again, there's no class. Now, you are not going to believe. Why? Because last time also she said the same and you didn't attend and you got into trouble. So you have a prejudice against that particular thing. So it is not helping you to understand what the message is all about. Then finally, gestures and postures that may distort the message. And this I've experienced a number of times when I've been teaching in the class. Have you understood, children? Yes, ma'am. They say like this, yes, ma'am. Means jo samajhna hai, samajh lo. So they're saying something, the gesture is saying something. So there's a lot of confusion. So this is a hindrance in communication. So hindrance means obstruction. So these are the various causes of obstruction. Now let us do the types of communication. Now they can be formal communication or informal communication. Now formal communication is that communication which flows through the official channels. Through the official channels that flows in the organization, it is called formal communication. Now this communication may be between the superior and the subordinate. Superior is communicating with the subordinate, or the subordinate communicating with the superior, or people at the same level communicating with each other. And this can be oral or written. Now formal communication is again of two types, vertical and horizontal. So let's do them. Now vertical, like vertical heights in a straight line. So vertical flows from the top to the bottom or from the bottom to the top. So when it flows from the top to the bottom, it is called downward communication. And when it flows from the bottom to the top, it's called upward communication. Now examples of upward communication are, now why would the subordinate communicate to the superior? Because they want leave or some report has to be submitted, feedback has to be given to the superior. So these are examples of upward communication. And downward communication is what is coming down to you from your boss. That could be in the form of notice being sent to attend a meeting, or assigning some work to the subordinate, or telling him about some duty that he has to do. So these are the examples of upward and downward communication. Now we also have horizontal communication. Horizontal communication is also called lateral communication. This is the other name for horizontal communication, and this takes place between people of different departments. So one department wants to communicate with the other at the same level. This is called horizontal communication. For example, the production manager and the marketing manager, they're discussing about when the product will be available, when can it be sold, etc. So at their level, when they're discussing anything about the product, that is called horizontal communication. Now come to informal communication. Informal communication is an integral part of formal communication. So informal communication is that communication which is not in the formal lines. And it is also sometimes called grapevine. Now, why is there a need for informal communication? Now, you must have experienced it sometimes that, let's say, your maths teacher has come and explained a particular thing to you, but you've not understood. So what you do is you ask your friend, have you understood? So he says, yeah, I've understood a little bit. So you say, okay, you explain it to me so that even I have to do the homework. So he explains it to you, coming down to your level. And now you also understand that much that he has understood. Now with this information that you have, knowledge you have, you will be able to do the homework. So whatever the needs of the employees are, whatever is lacking in formal communication, that can be done in case of informal communication. And in informal communication, they can share their ideas and views about various things. Suppose a subordinate has had a fight with the superior. Superior has been very rude to him. Now, during the canteen time, when he goes to the canteen, he talks with his friends and tells them that, see, he's always after me. He's always saying this and that. Now, you cannot answer back to your superior. So you talk to your friend. And the friend said, leave it. He's always saying something or the other. Don't ignore. Uski to aadat hi hai. So now you've talked to him. Now you're also relieved. Now next you go back to work and now you're okay. So the needs of the employees, because we are a social animal, we need to socialize. We need to talk about various things. So this informal communication helps. But here it leads to rumors also. Though informal communication is very fast, it goes very fast, but it leads to rumors sometimes. Somebody has said tomorrow might be a holiday, and might has been removed. By the time it reaches the 10th person, tomorrow's holiday. So this is how rumors spread, because you cannot trace the source of informal communication and you can't hold anybody responsible. But still, informal communication is very important in every organization. And now this brings us to the case study. And as always, we will first see the question that has been asked and start looking for the answer from that viewpoint. So from the above para, quote lines that indicate formal and informal communication. Okay, we have to quote the lines also here. Pratik is working in a multinational company in Noida. He was running temperature for the last many days. When his blood was tested, he was found positive for malaria. He was admitted in the hospital and a blood transfusion was advised by the doctors as his condition was very serious. One of his colleagues sent a text message to his superior, Mr. B. Chatterjee. Mr. B. Chatterjee immediately sent a text message to the employees of the organization requesting them to donate blood for Pratik. When the general manager came to know about it, he ordered for fumigation in the company premises and for cleaning the surroundings. So we have to identify the lines and see what type of communication it is. So I'll give you a moment to recollect and then I'll share the answer with you. Yes, you've got it correct. One of the colleagues sent a text message, that is one. And when the general manager came to know, there are two forms of communication and they are formal is when the general manager came to know. So general manager is actually he's passing order. So that is formal. And informal is you're texting each other like we do in WhatsApp groups and we keep texting. Children, whenever lines are to be quoted, this is the best method of presentation. You must write your answer in such a way that the teacher not only comes to know which particular type of communication are you talking about and what are the lines that you've quoted. And that's all in this video. Thank you.